could have a chief of police come talk to you.
Morning, how we doing today? That's it? Just
No,
two?
you guys do better than that, guys, come on.
How we doing today? Good? Friday, right? All right. I'm Chief Logan with the West Bronx Police Department. A little bit about myself, and then we can get into some questions. I've been in law enforcement for 24 years now. I got hired in August of '99 by the city of West Burlington. Worked there for 4 years. 2003, I went to Des Moines County Sheriff's Department, worked there for 12 years. 9 of those years I was a school resource officer at Mediapolis and Danville schools. I did both schools. They have their own deputy at each school now, so I would go back and forth between the two schools. I did that for 9 years. Back in 2015, I was hired by the city of West Burlington again as assistant police chief under Chief Newberry. I worked under Chief Newberry for about 3 years. In 2018, I was hired, September of 2018, I was hired as police chief. I've been there every day since then as police chief. I am also on the fire department in West Burlington. Right now I'm acting fire chief. Chief Ryan was let go about a month ago. Under him, I was second in charge on the fire department, so now I'm acting fire chief out there. So I do both roles. I've been a firefighter longer than I've been a police officer. Out there at the volunteer West Point Police Department, EMT. I'm also a DARE instructor. I do teach DARE. I still do teach DARE. I teach it at Great River Christian School. That was one of my schools that I taught it when I was a DARE instructor at for the Sheriff's Department. And I just continued teaching DARE. Sheriff's Department didn't want to do that anymore, so I continued teaching it over there. So I teach it there every other year. I do both 5th and 6th grade at the same time. So, law enforcement, I've done, started out as a patrol officer. West Burlington, we have 3 shifts, first shift, second shift, and third shift. 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. is second shift, and then night shift, third shift is 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. We'll get back on the police department here in a little bit. Family-wise, I have 2 daughters. Bryn, who just graduated high school last year. She goes to SEC this year. I have a daughter, Libby, who just graduated the University of Iowa last spring. Majoring in physical therapy. She's applying now to get into her physical therapy school, so she should be starting back up here early next year. She'll be starting her PT school. I have a stepson who's in the Navy. Has been in the Navy for the last 6 years. His first deployment when he graduated, got out of the Navy Academy, as he went to Yokosuka, Japan, was his first deployment. Spent over there for about 2 years, went anywhere from Japan all the way down to the Pacific, all the way down to Australia. So he was able to get to Australia, so I've always wanted to go. So it's pretty cool that he did that. He's still in the Navy. He's in Virginia Beach right now. So that's where he's stationed at. So he's been there for over 2 years now. He's getting out in May next year, moving back to the Midwest with his wife and got 2 grandkids. So stay pretty busy doing that. Family life, I've been very active with my kids. Coached a lot of softball, a lot of traveling softball. I did a lot of basketball, baseball with my son. So pretty involved with them. Working as an officer, I worked a lot of years night shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Just fit the family life the best, with being, it kind of goes by seniority. So you either, the least senior officers typically get stuck on second shift. Not always, but typically second shift. And the reason is, because everybody else has family, more likely than, you know, the new officers. So if you get day shift, you'll bid day shift. If you can't get day shift, then you bid night shift, because you want to be with your family and your kids, you know, going to their events that they're in, and that's always, you know, in the evenings. So I worked a lot of years night shift. I enjoyed night shift, but night shift is extremely frustrating sometimes, because day shift, you know, before I know it, it'll be 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, you know, and I'm time to go home. Working night shift, some of those nights just go on forever. It's just like, man. Sometimes you wish first shift and second shift would work 9-hour shifts, and then night shift should be stuck with 6-hour shifts or something like that, because sometimes it just drags on forever.
On nights you see the craziest stuff.
Huh?
On nights you see the
You
craziest.
do. You know, typically from, you know, like West Burlington, we were night shift, so from like 11 p.m., then by 2 o'clock, the light switch shuts off, and you don't see nothing else until 7 o'clock in the morning. You know, it's just weird how night shift is. It's just odd. You know, day shift, you're busy all day long, going to calls. What I always say, cleaning up what night shift missed the night before. You know, that's when we get a lot of our burglaries reported as day shift. Vandalism gets reported during day shift. You know, your car broke into, your garage broke into, whatever. A lot of that gets reported, you know, after you wake up. So I always give night shift crap. What'd you guys do last night? Why did we have these burglaries? Why did we have these car tires slashed? Why did this happen? So just give them a hard time. It's fun. It's frustrating. It's interesting. All of it in one thing, one day. You know, you could be the most bored officer on the streets at that particular time. It can change just that quick, and you could be in a complete crap show right there, right now. It just depends what you stumble up onto, what you see, what you find, what you get dispatched to. So that's a good thing about being a police officer. You know, you're not, nothing wrong with it. You know, it just wasn't my forte. It's not what I want to do. You know, you got your manufacturing people, you got your business offices, you know, you got all that where, you know, people are stuck inside all day long, and that's where they're stuck at all day. As law enforcement, you're not. You know, you're out on the streets, you're out in the weather, you know, but again, that could kind of bite you too. Because, you know, one day could be nice like this, and tomorrow could be, you know, 0 degrees outside and dealing with stuff outside all day long. So that's the hard part about working outside. Any questions so far? Nothing? What I typically do as a chief is I work from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. First thing that I check when I get in is my emails and a system called Tracks. That's a reporting system that the officers use. That's what they write all citations on, written warnings, accident reports. We arrest you for something, the complaint affidavits are done on that. So all that's gotta be reviewed before 8:30 in the morning. And the reason it's 8:30 in the morning is that's when, if I arrest you, you typically see the judge about 8:30 in the morning. So all that paperwork has to be down to the courthouse or out to the jail by 8:30 in the morning. So I gotta review the complaint affidavits, I gotta read them, talk to the officers that were involved with them, make sure everything's correct, make sure it's the right charges, date of births, our social security numbers, everything matches up. Then we sign that and send it electronically down to the courthouse for them. So that's some of the first things, that's some of the first things that we do, you know, that I do first thing in the morning. Yes, sir. Why did I get into law enforcement? When I was in high school, careers class, I had the opportunity to go do a ride-along. I rode along with the Burlington Police Department, the Moline County Sheriff's Department, and the West Burlington Police Department over about a month's period of time, maybe 2 months period of time. You know, I got to ride each department, kind of did each of the different shifts, and at that time I decided that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a police officer. I've always been very involved with like sports in high school, junior high. I did football, basketball, ran track, played baseball, all throughout my career. Very involved, very active. I just enjoyed it. I just enjoyed what I saw. You know, it's just what I was talking about. You know, my office is my patrol car, you know, as an officer, not as a chief, but as a police officer, that's your office. That's where you work out of. That's where you do a lot of your work. You have an office that you go back to at the police department, absolutely. But when you're out dealing with somebody, you're talking to a victim, you're talking to a suspect, you're talking to whoever, you need to have whatever you need to have available for that person at that time. So you got to carry it with you. Yes?
How do you work with the police chief and fire chief?
Well, for my main job is the police chief. Fire department is a volunteer fire department out in West Burlington. So as you're available, you can go to those calls. Now, I still work as a police chief dressed like this every day, but if there's a fire incident in West Burlington, I will respond to that as a fire chief. I take care of a lot of the budgeting for both departments. Vehicles break down, equipment breaks, so I gotta order new stuff, I gotta get stuff working again. I still manage all the firefighters. We have training at least twice a month on the first and third Monday of every month, so I lead those meetings and trainings that we have. I still respond to calls on the fire department when I'm not doing police department stuff. I am an EMT, so I go on a lot of medical calls. So it's just, we don't, as a city, we don't know what route we're gonna go right now. I don't know if I'll end up being a public safety officer running both departments, or if they're gonna hire another fire chief, you know, here in the next few months. That's still kind of up in the air. So right now, I'm just kind of running both departments. So, like I said, I've been a firefighter longer than I've been a police officer. It's always fun to go to trainings, because if you're at a police training, we give a lot of crap about the firefighters, how, you know, you're a full-time firefighter, if you're not on the call, you got your training done for the day, you got everything done, you can go to the day room, you can take a nap, you can kick back at a lazy boy, you know, you do all that as a firefighter. Law enforcement, we don't get that option. So then when I go to fire department trainings or meetings, then they make fun of all the cops. So it goes back both ways.
You could choose which position would you choose?
Say what?
Which position would you choose, a firefighter?
I would choose police officer. There are days that I wish, it's like, man, why do I do this? Why didn't I do that? But when it comes down to it, I like being a police officer more than a firefighter. Fire department is the same thing. You know, it's fire's a fire. House fire's a house fire, car fire's a car fire. You know, a medical call is a medical call. You know, things change. You know, houses burn 40 times faster now than they did back in the 70s and 80s because of what everything's made out of today. Everything's synthetic. It burns faster, hotter, quicker, you know, more toxic smoke, but it's still a fire's a fire. You still do the same thing. Law enforcement, you know, there's just so many more different things that we do. You know, we do traffic stops to car accidents to dealing with, you know, your car getting broken into, to a shoplifter, to, you know, physical assault, you know, domestic, you know, not anything fun, but there's just a lot of different things that we deal with from day in, day out. I'm a very busy person. I'm always active. I'm always doing something, gotta be doing something. This is the only time of the year that I kind of start relaxing a little bit because of football. I enjoy watching football. So that's what I do in my free time. Yes?
What team are you looking
Football, Iowa Hawkeyes, Chicago Bears, my two teams. So, baseball is the Cubs. So,
Representing up there.
yeah, I saw that. What was your question?
What was your hiring process like?
Hiring process, we'll get back to that. Very similar to what it is today. Standards are still the same. There's one less requirement today than there was when I was hired, and we'll get to that. So to become a police officer, anybody talk to you about, you know, the other officers coming in, how the hiring process goes? Okay, it's similar. It's very similar for West Burlington, and the Sheriff's Department. You gotta do the physical agility test. That's the first test that we start off on. Setups, push-ups, and a 1.5 mile run. When I was hired, we had to do a set and reach. They don't have to do that anymore, flexibility. That was the closest thing that I just about failed on because I'm not very flexible. It don't matter how much stretching and all that, it just doesn't work out. My hamstrings are like this all the time. So that's the hiring process. You got so many push-ups, so many sit-ups, and a 1.5 mile you have to do. You pass that, and you go into the written test, the post test. Math, you know, spelling, writing, you know, you read a story and you gotta pick things out, spelling, you get a generic report, and you gotta, you know, what did the suspect steal? Where did it happen at? And you gotta write out that it happened at 123 Broadway Street. You know, that's what you have to do. After that, we do, you know, background checks, MMPIs. You know what an MMPI, they talk to you about the MMPI, so you got to do that. We take your fingerprints, get tested by the DCI, the FBI. That's the hiring process. Then you go to the police academy for 16 weeks. After you complete the police academy, I'll get with you to say. And once you complete the police academy, then you do a 12-week, typically about 12-week ride along with other officers it's part of your FTO. You have an FTO officer, field training officer. You typically ride with different officers after about every 3 weeks. They change you from one officer to another officer. So that's kind of the hiring process. Same thing, you know, interviews. We do background checks. We check with your contacts that you have, your references. We check with your neighbors. We check with other family members. So we do a lot of that. We check school records, your past employment records. We check all that. What's your question?
What did you have to do to work
To be a police chief?
Like, what other positions did you have to have?
Okay. For command staff in West Burlington, it all comes down to years of service. Right now, I have 2 sergeants and me as a police chief, but do you guys remember what I got hired as? No, when I got hired in West Burlington, back in 2015, what was I hired as? No. Assistant police chief. I was hired as assistant police chief. We don't have that position right now. The reason I was hired as assistant police chief is because Chief Newberry was at work one day like this, went to the emergency room, and within 15 minutes of being at the emergency room, he was paralyzed from here on down. What happened is, he thinks it happened when he was working night shift. He fell backwards, and he thinks he cracked his vertebrae in his back. And over time, fine in his back, and ended up breaking off and severing his spinal cord. So he's paralyzed from here still down, still is today. Fortunate thing for the city of West Burlington, he continued to let him be a police chief for another 4 years after being partially paralyzed. I was in a wheelchair every day, but I was hired as assistant police chief at that time. I had to do a lot of the meetings, I had to do a lot of the traveling, all of that. He was stuck in the office pretty much every day. As when I became a police chief, I'm a working police chief. That means I go out, I answer calls, I pull people over, I write tickets, I still arrest people, I do all that. So what best fit the department at this time is I hired 2 sergeants. Burlington Police Department has sergeants, lieutenants, majors, and they have chiefs. Police department or the sheriff's department has sergeants, lieutenant, chief deputy, and sheriff. It just comes down to West Burlington's years of experience. There's been sergeants at West Burlington, there's been lieutenants at West Burlington, assistant chiefs at West Burlington. Just kind of fits how the chief wants it. But it comes down to years of service for to be a sergeant, years of service to be assistant chief, years of service to be a chief. You can't just get hired and then 6 months down the road after you graduate the academy and you're out on your own, you can become a sergeant. It just doesn't work that way. You gotta have the experience is what it all comes down to. And that's how most departments are, is just the more experience you get, then you can start applying for a sergeant's position if there's a sergeant's position open. When I became chief, I put it out to everybody that was eligible to become sergeants. They wrote a reason why they wanted to be a sergeant. And then I promoted the 2 sergeants. So that's how that works. That's how most departments work. It comes down to, you gotta apply for that opening. So as soon as, somebody retires, you have a lieutenant that retires, or a sergeant that retires, or whatever, people move up in the chain of command, and then they need to fill that spot. So then the officers that are eligible writes out a resume why they want to become the next sergeant. Then it's up to like the chief or whatever to decide who's going to be the next commanding officer. What is, going back to the physical agility test, what is, we have set-ups, push-ups, and run, right? You gotta get it in so much time. What is one that everybody fails on that I've been involved with? What do you think the number 1 is for physical agility? Nope. Any? Nope. It's set-ups. That's the first thing I test for. That's just, it amazes me the lack of preparation that people have when they want to become police officers. They know what our standards are. If you want to have this job, you know what the standards are, or at least you should know. You need to know what the standards are. You have to practice. You have to run. You have to do push-ups. You have to do sit-ups. And everybody that I start off with, I do the sit-ups first. Over half of the people that fail, 3/4 of the people that fail the physical agility part is the sit-ups. Not very many people, and then it comes to the run. Just your abdominal muscles, once you're tired, once you're fatigued, You can't push out another setup. You just cannot do it. I've seen it. I've been there myself. You know, once you get to that point that you can't do anymore, no matter what, you know, running, you know, you might be able to kind of slow down for a little while, jog for a little while. I've seen people walk and still pass the run. You know, because then, you know, you catch your breath, you might be having a cramp, you know, something's going on, you know, you might have to slow down a little bit, catch your breath, you know, and then off you go again. Push-ups are the same way, you know, they're right behind setups. You know, normally you can see somebody push off 1, 2, 3 more push-ups, but when it comes to those setups, once you're done, you're done. I mean, it just goes from here, then boom, just like that. You can't do another setup. You know, there's rules that you have to follow. Your shoulder blades have to come back, touch the ground. Your hands have to stay on your head. It doesn't matter where at. And then your elbows have to stay tucked in and touch from anywhere from your, like your lower thigh, I guess, to your knee. So, you can't throw yourself. Your hands cannot come off your face, so that setup doesn't count. So, that's number one. And then my number one failure for the written test is the math part. 20 minutes, 20 questions. It's a timed test. No calculators, no phones, it's all pen and paper. And, you know, there's a lot of math work that you have to do. It's easy, but it's time consuming. So it's just one of those things that you have to stay on task, you gotta stay focused, you gotta work through it.
Let me tell you, I suck at math and never studied with math.
Yeah. You know, my biggest thing is spelling. My spelling is horrible. But, you know, it's just stuff that I studied for. You gotta work through it. Unfortunately, that's one of the biggest failures for kids now is spelling. You know, math, or not math, but spelling, writing sentences out. You know, they don't know how to communicate effectively anymore. So, what else?
How has being a chief or a cop affected your life or your family life?
For me, I got lucky. Once the day's over at work, majority of the time I can leave it at work. I could go home, you know, I could have a crappy day at work. I'd go home to my kids. We would have softball practice, you know, basketball practice. They may be at a sporting event. We may have to go to the softball game. We might have to, you know, go to the track event. You know, they may have, you know, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts with my son. You know, there's just so much things that were going on that I can just leave my work stuff at work. But it's still stressful. It's still a lot of things that are on your mind. There's still a lot of things that you see that bother you. So it does carry home sometimes, and it can become stressful. Your biggest thing is you know, you got your work family, so you can talk about a lot of things that you did at work with your work family that you cannot go home and talk or discuss with your regular family. There's a lot of things that unfortunately you can't go talk to your wives about, you can't talk to your girlfriends about, you can't talk to your husbands, your kids, you know, your parents, whatever part of the career you're at. You know, you just can't go home and start discussing these things. There are things that you can discuss, but unfortunately there are things that you cannot discuss. Because you can't, it doesn't matter if they're your spouse, that information cannot get out. They can't accidentally slip up and tell a coworker. Then boom, everybody knows what's going on. So there's things that, you know, you just can't tell your spouse. So that's hard. It's hard when they know something happened and you went home and they can see that something's bothering you, but you can't talk about it. It's just unfortunate thing about it. But like I talked to the last class, that's a good thing about having your work family. You can talk to them about it. They're involved with you. You can bounce ideas off of them. You joke with them, not joking about the incident, but, you still gotta have a good relationship. You still have to be serious, but you still mess around, you still joke, give each other crap, pick on them, pick on them because they're a St. Louis Cardinals fan, pick on them because they're a Packers fan, those kind of things, I get crap because I'm a Bears fan, or a Cubs fan, so, that kind of stuff goes on there.
Sometimes you need that.
Oh, absolutely. It's just, get your mind off of what you just got done dealing with. Some calls could be 5 minutes long, done, over, don't have to worry about it anymore. And other calls are hours and hours and days, goes into weeks. Some cases are years. By the time I dealt and arrested you for this crime, it may be 9, 12, 15 months down the road before we go to trial, before we ever go to trial over that crime that you were committed of doing. So, and some of the more serious ones, we're talking, it could be child abuse, it could be, physical or, rape, it could be sexual abuse, it could be anything like that. And you have to deal with that for months and months and months down the road, and it gets very exhausting. It gets on you. Yes?
So, when you're out, you catch a case and goes further than just the call, do you just hand it over to the other division, or do you help them work it? Or-
Good thing, well, we're talking about West Burlington. We don't have like a criminal investigation division. I have 10 officers when I'm fully staffed. That's including me. So it's me, 2 sergeants, 6 patrol officers, and I got 1 investigator that's in the Southeast Iowa Narcotics Task Force. So for a patrol officer, you have to do the whole thing. You have to take the complaint, you have to interview the suspects, you gotta interview the witnesses, the victim, you gotta do all your background, everything yourself, all your investigation. So it's very, very time consuming, very time consuming. So that's what I'm saying is that if you're stuck on a big case, you may be working on it for 6, 7, 8 hours. But do you think at West Burlington we can get that done in one day? No, because a lot of times there may be only 1 officer working. So you gotta go answer all those other calls. So now that case is, 3, 4 days later, now all of a sudden you're on your days off. Now you get 3 days off. So it may be a whole week before you get back to that case. So that is a frustrating thing, but there's nothing I can do about that.
The nice thing is on major calls, you pool our resources.
Yeah. We get assistance from Burlington investigators, They ask us questions, we ask them questions. Sheriff's Department helps us all the time because we don't have an investigator dedicated for something. We can call the state. State DCI comes and helps us. The FBI has helped us before. They got divisions in Iowa, Cedar Rapids. There's an FBI division out of Cedar Rapids that covers eastern Iowa. So, we have resources that we do pool and work together on, but, at West Burlington, that's the bad thing about being a little smaller community is I just don't have, like Burlington there's 4 people in CID, I think, the Criminal Investigation Division. So there's 4 investigators for Burlington Police Department. Sheriff's Department has 2 criminal investigators on the criminal side. We have 0. I'm trying to get one, but again, it all goes down to what's money is available. We have limited resources where we get money for public safety in West Burlington. It all comes off of taxes, like the water department, they get money from different places. Public safety does not. It all comes from the general fund. So there's only so much money we have to begin every year with, and that's for everything we do. Our wages, our equipment, our gas for our cars, all that comes out of one pool of money. I have $1.2 million in my budget, but 600,000 of that is wages. So when you start talking about that, that doesn't leave you a whole lot of money to last a whole year of equipment, of other stuff. So we just don't have that money available for an investigator. I would like a investigator, and I would like to hire a school resource officer. Those are two positions that I would love to add to my staff. We would have 12 officers then. I'm working on it, but it's going to take a little bit of time to get there.
How much push-ups can you do?
Huh? You gotta speak up a little bit.
How much push-ups can you do?
Push-ups?
Yeah.
I've had 2 rotator cuff surgeries, so not a whole lot, but I can still get them out.
How do you describe yourself as a police officer?
How do I describe myself?
Police officer.
We talked a little bit about it last period, is, I'm easy to get along with. It takes a lot to get me mad, but once you get me to that point, it's not good, okay? I understand, everybody's a victim, everybody's a suspect, you screwed up, you did something wrong, I still gotta respect you, all right? Respect goes a long way with me. If you respect me, I will respect you. I will talk to you, we'll have the discussion, it's called verbal judo, very good. But we get to that point where, you know, you're not cooperating, it's not going the way, you know, it should. I have to change my tactics, we have to go to a different direction, then I go that different direction. But, for the tools on my belt, my taser, my handgun, pepper spray, I've used my taser on 2 people out of the 16 years that I've carried a taser, I've used it twice. Pepper spray, I've used it once. I never used my weapon on anybody. Obviously, I pulled it out about 4 or 5 years ago. Was the closest that I ever shot somebody out in the mall parking lot. Suspect was dealing with him. He kept reaching under his coat, going for his coat. He kept raising his hand, saying he didn't have nothing. And one time he raised his hand, his coat come up, and I saw a holster with a gun in his hip. And one time he started reaching for it again. I started pulling my trigger, telling him no, no, no. Finally, he put his hands up again. As soon as he put his hands up, I chased him. I went after him, and I was able to detain him. And what he had in his hip was a gun in a holster, but it was a BB gun. So he was just about shot that afternoon over a BB gun.
And you can't tell the difference.
You cannot tell the difference, absolutely not. So, yes,
Is the thing like right here, is that a camera?
yep, that's our body cameras. Yep,
That's all I have.
yep, so
Why do you have 2 phones?
personal phone and duty phone. It just all comes down to everything that's on your duty phone is admissible in court. The defense attorney can basically take your phone and download everything that's on that phone. So if you have personal information, personal text, you know, Facebook accounts, all that could be admissible in court. They can get into all that information. So that's why we have a personal phone to do my personal business with, you know, talk to my family, all that, and then my work phone's for work. I went several years without having both, but you know, you need to have 2 phones. If in this kind of a work, if you get a work phone assigned to you, now that's the other thing for West Burlington is we do have a patrol cell phone that we pass off to whoever's on shift, so they can have the patrol phone. Again, if they use their personal phone, that's on them, because we have a phone available for them. But again, if they take pictures of a crime scene, all of a sudden that phone becomes admissible in court, and they take your phone and you're stuck without a phone. You can be without a phone for a month, you know, a couple weeks, whatever, so.
Is that your patrol phone?
This one?
Whichever one.
Yeah, this is my personal phone, and then this is my, work phone.
So that's the one that they passed on, that one right there?
I have my own assigned to me, but for like patrol officers, where the regular officers, like my sergeants have a work phone, and I have a work phone, and then my detective with the task force has a work phone. And then the other 5 officers at this time pass off that other phone between their shifts.
Did you buy all those through the budget?
Yes, that's just part of the budget, yep. So cell phones, computers, you know, all these different, softwares that we have to pay, all that comes out of the police department budget. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that we have to pay for that comes out of just a tight amount of money. Did you have a question?
What is the other thing?
That is my taser. Yep, that's my taser. Handcuffs, duty weapon. I still carry pepper spray, and then flashlight. Everybody asks, why do you carry a flashlight? Well, buildings get dark in the day also, basements, all that. So that's why I carry a flashlight with me every day. So most days, I should say. So.
How much weight does you?
All this weight adds about, what is it, about 25 pounds or so, 20?
Anywhere between 28 and 30.
Yeah, so 25, 30 pounds. What's changed from when we first started as an officer to now is our bulletproof vests were all under our uniforms. Everything was under your uniform. Now they have these outer carriers is what they call them. When we get back to the office, you know, we've got 2 Velcro straps, pull them off, pull it up over my head, I could put it in the chair. Now I took all this heat, all this weight, all this equipment off of me, and then it's better for your back, better for your hips. A lot of the officers have molly gear, which is a little bit different than this. So some officers carry their taser up here, some officers carry their handcuffs up here, just trying to get that weight off of your hips.
Oh, the next question was, does everybody have to wear, like, this stuff in a specific spot?
No, it's officer's discretion. A lot of officers don't carry pepper spray. I still carry pepper spray. Pepper spray works very well. Pepper spray works even better on dogs. That's the main reason I carry pepper spray. If I have a dog charging me, could I put it down if I had to? Yes. A little pepper spray in the mouth and eyes goes a long way with the dog. You know,
Something you do.
that's what male.
Taser on the opposite side of your handgun.
Yeah, it's always on the weak side, so you don't get confused. Should not get confused, but again, in a high stress situation, there have been officers that's pulled, you know, their duty weapon thinking they had their taser and ended up shooting somebody instead of tasing somebody, so it happens. And that's the other reason why we have it yellow. You know, I pull up on a scene and I see one of my officers have something pointed out in front of them. It's very easily determined that I get on scene, I said, oh, they got their taser out, or, oh, they got their handgun out. It's very easy. There are tasers that are black. I prefer the yellow ones, just because of the visibility.
Do all officers have to wear all black uniforms?
No, it's kind of the tradition is that, and a lot of it comes down to sometimes, we got to try to hide ourselves. You know, if we're coming up on a call, we're coming up at nighttime, you can't have a white uniform, or you shouldn't have a white uniform. People can see that. There's just kind of a tradition to a darker uniform. There are police departments that have a whiter or a lighter blue. Sheriff's Department, they wear green and tan. State troopers wear brown. County the DNR, they're kind of like the Sheriff's Department. So it just depends where you're at. There are some police departments that do wear white uniforms. I think Chicago Police Department, well,
Their sergeants.
their command staff wear white. But yeah, it just kind of some uniforms have a blue stripe down them. Some of them have just different color stripes, but typically it's more similar to this navy blue.
You got any stories?
Got a lot of stories. Tell them. Being in law enforcement for as long as I have been, along with Mr. Carper, You know, we've seen a lot of things. There's probably, every once in a while, very seldom, but every once in a while, you come up onto something and say, well, that's something new that I've never seen before, but not very often. I've seen a lot. I've seen people shot, stabbed, car accidents of like, how in the heck did that happen? You just amazed by how some car accidents happen. You're amazed how some car accidents where the car, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the car, and just everything's wrong with the car, all smashed up in a little piece, and the person crawls out of it not hurt. And then you see other car accidents that there's very little damage done and the person's died in it, from the accident. It's like, how in the heck does that happen? I was involved in a car chase last fall. Yeah, I think last fall. It went into Illinois.
That was a spring.
Was it this spring?
Yeah, it was up like you.
Okay, it was this spring. Had a car chase that started in Burlington. I was close to it, even though it started in Burlington. I continued the car chase all the way over to Monmouth, Illinois. You know where Monmouth is? And as we were coming into Monmouth, I was just going to discontinue the chase because I know Illinois officers were able to assist me. And so I was just going to call it off. And then at that time, he ran a red light, T-boned a semi going through an intersection going 55 miles an hour. He was going fast enough that he ended up turning that semi completely sideways. The car bounced off of it, caught on fire, and we got him out of the car about 32 seconds before the interior of that car completely became involved in fire. I finally looked at him because he wasn't really helping us. I told him, I said, there's nothing else we can do for you right now. I said, either you have to get out of this vehicle or you're gonna die in that vehicle, because there was nothing that we could have done for him. He was able to self-extricate himself from that vehicle, and we got him out. And then 32 seconds later, in the video of my squad car, you can see that whole interior of the car going completely engulfed in flames. So, it's an unfortunate situation. We got policies that we have to follow, car chase policies, all that. It's kind of the command staff in West Burlington. It's our decision if we're gonna allow it, but there are still some policies that our officers have to follow. Some departments are more restrictive than other departments for some policies. But that was one of the big ones. More recent was that car accident. We ended up using 8 fire extinguishers, but that's not gonna put it out. All that helped us do is contain the fire until either we got them out. The fire department was showing up as we were pulling them out of the car, but it still would have been too late for the fire department because it takes a little bit of time to get the water to the end of the hose. So, that one would have ended up in a bad deal. Some of the worst cases that I've been involved with is, either for children, you're talking about physical abuse, sexual abuse for adults is very hard, because typically most of the sexual abuse happens to females than by a male, most of the time, not always, but most of the time. So us as a male, with me being, a little bit bigger, coming into an ER room where this victim is saying that she was just raped or sexually abused or whatever, that's hard. So what I try to do is get to their level. I try to find a chair. I try to sit down in the chair, not stand over them while talking to them. I shut my radio off. I just completely shut my radio off so they don't hear all the radio traffic, of whatever's going on. I shut the radio off. If I can, I'll take like this off. I say, is it all right if I take my vest off? They say, yeah, so I'll take my vest off and put it on a chair, so I don't have all this, in their face. So, so out in West Burlington, we have to handle all those cases. So that's hard, trying to talk to them. They were just assaulted by a male, I'm a male, and then, it's very personal. Very, very personal. We gotta get the details. We gotta find out what happened so we can get enough criminal evidence so we can go after them, prosecute them. So it's a very, very serious charge. And we just have to have full cooperation from the victim. And that's the same thing with domestic abuse assault. We see it a lot where we get called to a house because of domestic abuse. We arrest the male for domestic abuse assault because that's typically, not only, that's majority of the calls is the male physically assaulting the female. We arrest the male and then, 2 weeks later, they're back together. Because she drops the no contact order, that's automatically put in place. They go back together and then they violate the no contact order and then they both go to jail. But it all comes down to that he was, he's the one that had the full-time job. He's the one that was paying the bills. He was the one that was providing for the family. So then they go back. And then, a couple months later, we go back for another physical, domestic assault. So those are always very, very hard to deal with. It gets very, very frustrating when we go back to the same couple that are, domestic assaults. So,
Are those the crime cases?
for us in West Burlington, the crime that we see the most is theft. So we have to deal with Walmart.
I'm still waiting for you guys for a substation up there.
We talked about it. I had to tell them to do what Ivy did, hire their own police officers, basically. We get, I was just kind of looking through stats yesterday. We've been to Walmart probably 200 times this year for thefts, and we're in August. So it's a very time-consuming ordeal, and they're doing their job. They're trying to save the company money, and they say, well, what's it matter? It's $1 billion company. Well, still, theft hurts. It hurts everybody. They have to raise prices to cover that. So that's a lot of calls. Off of that, domestic situations, they're up there. It just depends what time of the year. When it gets really hot outside, we have a lot of domestic situations, and then when it's really cold out, because everybody's stuck inside, especially in the wintertime. You got the holidays at the beginning of winter, you got Thanksgiving, then 4 weeks later you got Christmas, then a week later you got New Year's Eve, then all of a sudden February rolls around and it's the coldest time of the year, it's the darkest time of the year, you get very little sunlight, you're stuck inside all the time with your significant other, with your kids, you have nowhere to go, you can't go outside, you can't get away from them, so we have a lot of domestic situations during the winter time. The bills start coming in for the holidays, with Christmas and all that, so yeah, it gets pretty stressful that time of the year.
Guys, have any more questions for me? What's your hardest thing as being a chief?
Hardest thing is, again, kind of working on, I still call it a business. I still have to run my business. My business is the police department. So I still have to do the budgets. I still have to, discipline my guys if they do something wrong, they do a policy wrong. I still gotta talk to them about doing the reports. Hey, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you need to follow up on this. That's hard. I still have to take all the complaints that, an officer mistreated me or whatever, so then I have to go back and interview them. I gotta go back and watch video and, see, no, the officers didn't do nothing. Just because the officer told you no, they get mad about that. It's like, this is the first time that anybody ever told me no. Well, too bad, we're telling you no. So we gotta deal with that. Some of our hardest police work now is dealing with people your age, people a little bit older than you, about 25 and under. You know, they think that we can't stop and talk to you. They think that we can't put our hands on, you know, like, you can't put your hands on me. Well, if you're a suspect and I need to talk to you about something that happened, I can put my hands on you and either detain you, put you in handcuffs, put you in my squad car, take you to the police department if I have to. It's very hard dealing with those kind of people now. You can't touch me. Yes, I can. I did nothing wrong. They told me you did it. That's why I'm just trying to talk to you. Again, it comes down to verbal judo, but again, some people just spout off out the mouth, you know, run their mouths, cuss us out for no reason, just because we're stopping you. We just get cussed at, nothing we can do about it. You know, we get degraded, we get called names, disrespected towards, and all I'm just doing is trying to find out, why are we here? Why did I get called to this classroom? Why did I get called to your house? Why did I get called to the swimming pool? All because you're being disruptive, you know, you're being disorderly, whatever. So that's very hard for us right now, is dealing with younger adults like that. It's fun, but again, it's frustrating. So, what else?
There's no more questions. Let's give them a round of applause, guys.
Thank you very